Absolutely. And I'll begin with this. I came to work every single day is it's okay to have fun. It's okay to have fun. And you can clearly distinguish when it's time to be professional, but that doesn't mean it has to be miserable. I mean, you can have fun. And as senior leaders, if you're not demonstrating to your subordinate leaders that that's okay, it's okay to have a good time at work, then you're not doing your job, I think, as a leader. You want to create an environment that's conducive for people to want to work there. That's what great leadership is, right? People got to say, man, I can't wait to get to work tomorrow. I couldn't wait to get to work. And I had a relationship with General Milne that was just that. He created a condition that allowed me to be the professional I needed to be, but not with a bunch of stress, with a little bit of ease. And that connection, sometimes when people see that, they realize that there's a human aspect to these people. They know the stress that's behind the job of being the chief of staff of the Army and now the chairman. Trust me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress out there, and the SMA. But in a public light, when you can demonstrate the fact that you can have fun, right, and keep it professional, it gives people an understanding of, hey, these are human beings, right? They are not just robots programmed to think one way, and they're just like you and me. Of course, there's a time where, you got the late nights and you're busy and you're serious. And yeah, I got my butt chewed by the chief and deserved every bit of it, for many reasons. But those things are done at a place that's appropriate for that type of behavior. But I think, every leader should open up a little bit.
Greetings, I'm Mark Riley, and welcome to the Washington Tattoo Podcast, where the world's musical traditions come to life. The Washington Tattoo is an international music and arts festival coming to the Washington, D.C. metro area. Our podcast explores the lives and stories of world-renowned musicians, dancers, producers, choreographers, artists, educators, arts advocates, and those who serve our cultural communities at large. For more information and donations, find us at www.thewashingtontattoo.com. Now, please enjoy this episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast, sharing the power of the arts, one story at a time.
Greetings and welcome everybody to the Washington Tattoo Podcast. As usual, I have my great friend and colleague, Stuart Warmington. How are you today?
All good. And before you ask, it's still wet, grey and miserable. So there you go.
Oh, I gotta love the UK. Wonderful, wonderful weather. It's starting to get a little warmer here in DC, so at least we have that to look forward to. But today's episode is unbelievable. I never thought a sergeant major of the Army ever could have had the chance of getting chewed out. I don't know. When SMA Dailey shared that, I could not believe it.
No, I mean, all eyes on him. Every single serviceman and veteran, where he was at the time, getting eyeballed. I mean, it's,
on a global stage, I mean, if you like American football and you have watched any of the last handfuls of the Super Bowl, and you saw this crazy new Army uniform that popped out, people are calling the pinks and greens. The man behind that was SMA Daniel Dailey, and he is our guest today. And apparently, he has a great story to share about how that uniform was revealed. So I think you're in for a massive treat today.
Yeah, incredible.
All right. Well, Stu, I think one other item for people to check out is also how veterans continue to give back. SMA Dailey was at the height of his career. He kept going. He hit the ceiling. He broke the ceiling, and he continues to serve. He's now the vice president of soldier and NCO programs for the Association of the United States Army, AUSA. And I think everyone's really in for a great treat today.
Yeah, I mean, the veteran side is such an important part, while you're in the job. But obviously when you leave, it then becomes even more important to yourself. So you understand what people have been going through in the past. So it becomes a very important part of your lifestyle and everybody else's.
Right. And I think the attitude that you have about taking care of folks that are going through the things you've gone through, and you relive and kind of reflect on those challenges you've had through your career. I mean, there's nobody better else than the Sergeant Major of the Army for some of those tips.
No, he's the perfect man for the job.
Awesome. Well, folks, enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the other side.
Greetings again, everyone. We just wanted to take a second to say thank you to Seif Studios for their creative media. If you want to find out more about Seif Studios, look them up on www.seifstudios.com. We'd also like to say thank you to our educational partner, ProLogix Percussion, American-made drum pads. They're doing a special discount code for our listeners today. So if you go to www.prologixpercussion.com and type in TWT20, you will receive 20% off your entire order. So thank you very much for tuning in today, and please check out our supporters.
We are incredibly honored to have the one and only Sergeant Major of the Army, Dan Dailey, on here today. So thank you so much, SMA, for taking the time to chat with us today.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. And I appreciate all that you guys are doing, and the Washington Tattoo, putting it together. I think it's going to be a great, great program. I know you got some great things coming up here in the near future.
Awesome. And over across the pond, I have my co-host over here, Stu Warmington. Stu, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, good. Once again, it's grey, miserable and raining, but I suppose that's just England, so you get used to it after a while.
Excellent. Well, I wanted to just talk a little bit, SMA, about your storied career. I mean, you have led soldiers, you've led folks, you've led teams really ever since I've known you. And it's coming on, I think, close to a decade that I've known you now, which is hard to imagine. But could you walk us through a little bit of your start, like as, you know, maybe a leader, kind of where you're from? How did you get your beginnings?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one I often get. You know, I was nobody special growing up, just a young kid from northeastern Pennsylvania, hardworking family. My father served, but only stayed in the Army a few years. My older brother had served, but only stayed. But we were all taught at a young age to serve our country, work hard, and do things right, honor people with respect. My mom was very proud to send us all through Catholic school and raise us with great moral compass. So I joined the Army with the intent to just join the Army and serve, and then come home and go to college, like most people do. You know, nobody says, I'm going to be a 30-year career. Well, some people do, but nobody really anticipates that. And I think what started me on my leadership journey is, you know, I was a soldier in Germany, came back from Desert Storm, and I had a phenomenal, I think the best squad leader the Army had to offer, by far the best in the battalion. And that was recognized by the other squad leaders, this guy named Staff Sergeant Davis. And he led us just superbly, and he inspired us. And I remember the day I sat down in the quad, and I was almost up with my first term, and he walked up and said, hey, you should re-enlist. I think you make a great leader, and I want to send you to PLDC. That's the 1990 version of what WLC is today. And I did well, and I pinned on sergeant very shortly thereafter, and started my leadership journey. But I really owe it to those leaders I had in the very beginning. They put us on the right course. They really did. And I can tell you, I was blessed as not just a soldier, but a leader throughout my career. I think one of the best benefits I had is I always had really good leaders. I just got lucky. I had phenomenal leaders all the way, oh gosh, until I culminated as the 15th SMA.
Incredible. No, and I love that whole journey because, you know, you have someone who looks out for you and kind of coaches you and gives you those opportunities. And I mean, when you look at success, those are the recipes of the building blocks for how to build success in your life. But then you've also given that to so many other folks. So it's just incredible. I know Stu's got something next for you.
Yeah, so like myself, I joined at a young age, but my father was in the Army, so that sort of spurred me to move on to that sort of side of things. And obviously, I know your father was in, and you said you said you just wanted to join and just do your little bit and then go to college. But at what point did you realize that actually this is now going to be a career that's going to last a little bit longer than just a couple of years? What, you know, where did that take place?
Yeah, I think it's shortly after I pinned on sergeant stripes and became a leader. You know, that sounds cliche, but I fell in love with it. I this calling of this is what I was put on earth to do. And there was really no turning back for me at that point. I had no desire to do anything but stay in the Army and serve for as long as I possibly could. And of course, and life too, right? So I PCS from Germany. I went back to my hometown, married the love of my life. And now there's a necessity to have a job. Let's all be realistic here, right? So your commitment is greater than yourself. It's about your family too, right? So you serve because you're a soldier and you do what your nation needs you to do. But it's also a job in reality, but it's also a great place to raise a family if you accept it as your life. So I think it's right when I became a young sergeant, I got to lead 3 soldiers as a team leader. I knew that then this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
That was it. So from a young age, obviously you got exposed to it with your family members as well. Were you fully exposed, or did you just know that, my father's in the army, or did you go into the barracks and stuff like this? Was it quite a big exposure to military life?
Oh, my father was in the army well before I was born. He joined it right after school, went to Germany right after, during the Vietnam War. His brother was actually in Vietnam, so they sent him to Germany and got out. And then he came home, married my mother, had my oldest brother, then the next oldest brother, and then me. So, but he used to tell us all the stories about how good it was, the camaraderie, the brotherhood. And I used to remember vividly, he used to say, I wish I would have never got out. We've heard so many people say that, right? But my father used to tell us that. I wish I would have never got out. And when I called him and said, the first time I said, I'm re-enlist, he said, I'm proud of you. You should do that if that's what you want to do. He never forced us to go in the military, but he inspired us to do it.
Perfect. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, SMA, you are a charismatic leader. Obviously, you have a connection ability like no other. Is that something that came natural to you, or is that something you've worked on through your career, that ability to just bring others and connect and see opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's always important. Everybody's got their unique leadership style, and it's shaped and molded by many things other than just oneself too. It comes from mimicking great leaders that you want to be like, and not doing the things that leaders you see do that you say, I don't want to do.
Yeah,
and,
right.
The top 10 leadership tips I put together, and really my leadership style was shaped by those things. The way I was raised by a hardworking father, a very charismatic mother. And I had brothers that taught me how to be a tough young kid and fight for what I wanted. We didn't have much at all as a young child. So, but I knew I had to work hard for everything in life, and I didn't expect anything to be given to me. But I think the most important thing is I learned very early on is you can learn something from everybody. And if you don't take in the information, you're going to be missing something. And even a young soldier, even a new soldier could have a great idea. And you got to give people the opportunity, all right? You don't always have to listen, all right? But when you do, people look at you and say, he genuinely cares. We know he can't do everything we say. Of course, when I was a sergeant major of the Army, people say, hey, can we do this? Say no, right? And it's easy to say no, and sometimes it's easy to say yes, but to explain why we can't do that is important. I think taking the time to listen to your soldiers, understanding and truly knowing them, where they came from, what's their upbringing, why they think the way they do, what are the influences in their lives that shape them to where they are today, gives a leader a better understanding of his people, and then people have a greater appreciation for the individual.
No, I think that's incredible. I mean, you're talking about that buy-in piece there, and the people who want to buy into the leaders that want to lead them, whether it's in a dangerous situation or in just a development situation. That trust and that leadership is critical. And I love the fact that you brought up that you went to Catholic school. High-fiving you, did the same thing from kindergarten all the way through high school. Definitely had my, my hand whacked a few times by some nuns. And it was one of those things where I feel like that created this kind of resilience and this grit. I was raised in upstate New York, and I went to high school in Poughkeepsie. And I do remember kind of that mentality of you do have to stand up for yourself. You have to learn kind of those little nuanced things from a very young age. And I think that really kind of transferred over to my Army career really, really well. So I see that we're in good company.
Yeah.
Stu, what do you got next?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, we've recently been talking about leaderships and leaders, and, so you've just recently lost the Chief of Staff, Army General Raymond Odierno. He swore you in as the 15th SMA, if that's correct. What was your relationship with him, and what did he mean to you as a leader, and I'm guessing a friend maybe?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for the majority of his tenure as the chief, I was the TRADOC sergeant major at that time, one of the ACOM commanders, sergeant majors, and spent a lot of time briefing General Odierno, and at that time, SMA Chandler. And you're correct. He selected me as the 15th sergeant major. I'll tell you the relationship. When I went in to the final interview with him, he had previously called my wife on the phone and asked her for permission to make me the sergeant major of the Army. Basically, the conversation went like this. He said, hey, listen, I called Mrs. Dailey and she said it was okay. So guess what? You're the sergeant major of the Army. A phenomenal leader. General Odierno was a great man, and is a true legacy he leaves behind him of sacrifice and service to this nation. His entire life, I mean, his entire life he gave to this country. And he is what I call our nation's credentials. Without people like that, America wouldn't be what it is today. And the things he did behind the scenes, that's what's really important. And something that's unique in the position of the SMA is you get to see the late hours, the nights, the weekends, the 7 days a week, the frustrations, the celebrations of all the hard work behind the scenes that goes on to get the things our soldiers need, to move the big programs forward, to shape an army so it's capable to hand off to the next greatest leaders in the future. What a great American. And unfortunately, we lost him too soon in life, but his legacy will live on.
Yeah. And it sounds like he had such a great sense of humor as well. We're going on about your phone call to the wife. It sounds like he was just a really nice guy, knew his job inside out, but also had this wicked sense of humor that made him who he was.
He did. And the relationship between the chief and the sergeant of the Army is unique and special. Unfortunately, you won't get to see some of the true stuff that happens, but you have to be that way. There's got to be a genuine trust by the commander of his senior enlisted leader, especially that of the Army. I mean, you're an optic of 1.2 million people on a daily basis, right? And everything you say and do doesn't represent Dan Dailey. It represents every soldier in America. So you got to have a special relationship, and you got to have the ability to walk in the chief's office without anybody in there and say, boss, what it is you need me to do? And have that direct dialogue of communication where it's easy for the chief to say, SMA, this is the direction we need to go. And that's something I tried to build with my leaders throughout my career. Everybody focuses on being a great leader. And sometimes if you focus on being a better follower, it'll make you a better leader in life, right? I always said it's a subordinate's responsibility to make a leader's job easy. And most people don't think that way, right? You should make it easy for your leaders to counsel you. You should make it easy for your leaders to correct you. You should make your leader's job easy. And that's what we all should be doing at every echelon of the Army. Just think if every soldier in the UK Army or in the United States went to work and said, I'm going to make my leader great today.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Think of the difference, right? Yeah.
Incredible. I love that you brought up, what doesn't happen behind closed doors. You have to know, obviously there's a line, and you have to have that professional ability to find out when you can allow yourself to have candor, when you can't have candor. But I definitely know on that change of command between General Odierno and General Milley, there was a lot of trash talking about New York and Boston.
Yeah.
And I always think that was very funny because it was one of those things too, where you could see the charisma between both leaders, and that what you just brought up, there's that fine line. And I feel like that's something I feel that you bring really to every conversation is this professional level of excellence, but you also have it with personality, and you as a human being come through, which creates that buy-in. So, I mean, could you just talk a little bit about, understanding a line, recognizing the professional side, but still making it personal for a counselor or a soldier?
Absolutely. I'll begin with this. I came to work every single day is it's okay to have fun. It's okay to have fun. And you can clearly distinguish when it's time to be professional, but that doesn't mean it has to be miserable. I mean, you can have fun. And as senior leaders, if you're not demonstrating to your subordinate leaders that that's okay, it's okay to have a good time at work, then you're not doing your job, I think, as a leader. You want to create an environment that's conducive for people to want to work there. That's what great leadership is, right? People got to say, man, I can't wait to get to work tomorrow. I couldn't wait to get to work. And I had a relationship with General Milley that was just that. He created a condition that allowed me to be the professional I needed to be, but not with a bunch of stress, with a little bit of ease. And that connection, sometimes when people see that, they realize that there's a human aspect to these people. They know the stress that's behind the job of being the chief of staff of the Army and now the chairman. Trust me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress out there, and the SMA. But in a public light, when you can demonstrate the fact that you can have fun, right, and keep it professional, it gives people an understanding of, hey, these are human beings, right? They are not just robots programmed to think one way, and they're just like you and me. Of course, there's a time where, you got the late nights and you're busy and you're serious. And yeah, I got my butt chewed by the chief. I deserved every bit of it, for many reasons, but those things are done in a place that's appropriate for that type of behavior. But I think, every leader should open up a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. If you're the stiff, rigid individual, I believe this, people are going to have a little bit harder time approaching you. And I never wanted anybody to feel like they couldn't come talk to me. I used to say, you go down to the motor pool, you sit back and just sit in a vehicle, even as a sergeant of the Army with a bunch of soldiers. They'll open up to you. They'll tell you everything. I don't even have to visit the leadership. They've already told me everything about them when they come to work, if they do PT, and they're not telling on anybody. They just trust you, and you can tell whether or not they're telling you the truth. If you're walking around as a leader and everybody's telling you everything's great, I promise you it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, you've opened up several times with, honestly, a certain celebrity chef. And I remember your personality coming out during a push-up contest with a certain celebrity chef, maybe named Robert Irvine, which I thought was hilarious. And I think at that point, I'll hand it off to Stu for the next question.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, also you've done a lot of philanthropic work over the years, and you've, multiple times where you've assisted the USO. You worked with Gary Sinise and Chef Robert Irvine, as part of the Invincible Spirit. I'm just wondering, how did you get involved with the USO, and obviously then your relationship with Gary and Chef Robert? How did that build up and progress? Yeah, both Chef Irvine, Robert Irvine, and Gary Sinise, still to this day, very close personal friends and absolute great human beings. I don't know in today's modern history, two individuals that give more than them to the United States Army and our soldiers. It's incredible. And through personal sacrifice and financial, I mean, they just devote their time and resources to our soldiers. And they are both the individuals that if I picked up the phone right now and said, I need something on behalf of our soldiers, they would say yes and figured out a way to do it. But you asked how did the relationship begin? And well, the USO is always well connected with the Sergeant Major of the Army because we mutually do things to support our soldiers on a regular basis. So we actually meet on a regular basis, and they used to come into the office. And the first time I met Chef Irvine was actually through the USO, and it was at Fort Belvoir when we did that first competition. And we just bonded and became friends thereafter, and did a bunch of things together in support of our soldiers, both overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as here in the States. And we still maintain that contact today. And same with Gary Sinise. I met him actually on a trip that he was on in Afghanistan with the chief. And since that day, we've been very good personal friends. Again, I can't describe how much they care about what our service members do. It is genuine. I wouldn't mention any other names out there, but there are people that will say, hey, I support the troops. They don't say it, they do it. And there's a huge, huge difference. So hats off to both of those gentlemen. Hope they're listening to the Washington Tattoo podcast, because to the end of this day, I say those are individuals that if they called me at midnight, I'm going to help them out if they need help.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I read an article, an interview with Gary Sinise, who said, Plain Lieutenant Dan changed his life, not for the movie side of it, but he never thought all this work behind he would end up doing and loving, and like completely changed he's how he thought about things. And it's amazing all the work he's done, and it's just incredible. Yeah, and I'll tell you, when he's with the soldiers, I mean, it's just hard to describe. I think it's something you have to watch and see, that his genuine concern. And I'll tell you, we've taken the places in Iraq and Afghanistan that are not the most friendly places in the world, and he doesn't care. He just wants to get out there and see the troops. And when we go and we get those individuals in front of the soldiers, plan enough time, because they're going to stay until they talk to the last soldier that wants to talk to them. And then the amount of work he does with his band is incredible too. He's a very talented musician, by the way. Lieutenant Dan is, or Gary Sinise. We're so used to calling him Lieutenant Dan. By the way, he got promoted to captain by General Milley in Afghanistan. So officially, he's an honorary captain, and no longer Lieutenant Dan, Captain Dan. But he does a lot of work and many years of support to the Association of United States Army. So he's done a lot of our concerts here in DC. So yeah, two great gentlemen that will remain special in the eyes of soldiers forever. Wow, that's amazing. It's like you said, if you just go and spend some time with the troops, that makes all the difference. It doesn't matter whether it's Gary Sinise talking to them or you're just down the motor pool. it just makes them feel, appreciated rather than just somebody shouting at them or just ignoring them completely. And that's the sign of a good leader. If you're willing to spend some time with the troops and just listen to what they've got to say, even if you don't ask them any questions, like you say, they'll just blurt it out and just tell you.
Yeah. I'll tell you with Chef Irvine too. I mean, he tells a story about how he was in the British Army. And he immediately creates this connection and bond. Of course, he's a physical fitness maniac too, as well. And so I've done many early morning PT sessions with soldiers, and he goes out there and runs with us and lifts with us. And I could always outrun him. I can't outlift that guy. He's pretty strong, but there's no limit to what they will do if you ask them if it's in support of our soldiers. It's incredible. And their personal energy to not only build their own personal careers, right? And they both in their own right are very successful gentlemen in both their personal lives. But to live that kind of lifestyle is a lot of work behind the scenes, but yet take the time to always be ready to support when asked.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. The other interesting piece of this connects kind of nicely because a connection of ours through Disney, it was actually how the old guard got involved with Robert Irvine and Gary Sinise. We'd be doing a drumline battle, and we started doing a drumline battle at this concert at Fort Belvoir, which was Fort Meade, then Bethesda, and it kind of built into this. And I do remember running into you at the Fort Myer gym one day, and this drumline battle idea kind of spilled over, I think, into a barbecue for the best warrior competition. And I know that music is obviously a very important role for soldiers and for inspiring folks. I mean, can you walk through, I think, music from your perspective, and what does that do for soldiers?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's music does calm the savage beast. And before I get to our soldiers, I'll talk about a scenario in Iraq. We had the ability to bring an army band over, and in a very time when it was very dangerous, a lot of stuff going on. And we announced to the Iraqi people that we were going to do this public concert, a little risky, right? In northern Iraq. And when we did it, it was like everybody came together. There was no violence. There was nothing. And they just sat there. And of course, our soldiers played beautifully. And you could just see that everybody's mind went away from, what was going on, the sectarian violence in Iraq that time. And the soldiers were at ease. And everybody just sat and listened to the music. It truly does calm the savage beast. But more than that, for the Army and the military, it is the defining symbol of honor, tradition, and legacy of our militaries. I mean, the drum was not just an instrument of music and pleasure. It was an instrument of function and form within the ranks of our military. And it's what all the soldiers literally marched to the beat of the drum. That wasn't for fun. It was like for precision and drill. And since the very beginning days of our militaries, those tools at that time, because I'll stay away from the word instrument, those tools at the time are what helped us fight and win our nation's wars for each other. And of course, and I'm sure sometime, the drummer, while they are off the battlefield and back at the campfire, I'm sure the sergeant said, "Hey, drummer, put us together a beat." And it brings the team together and sings and songs. But when you see the unison of a drum line play together, and you feel the heartbeat at close range of all those synchronized drums playing together, there's no other word to describe it. It is breathtaking. And a military member in uniform in a period dress, beating on those drums in synchronization and complete precision is breathtaking.
We just want to take 1 second here at the Washington Tattoo Podcast to thank our sponsor for this episode, McClellan Bagpipes. Roddy McClellan, artisan and master maker of distinctive limited production and bespoke bagpipes. McClellan instruments are crafted from the finest materials using traditional skills originating in Scotland. Attention to detail and dedication to the highest standards of quality guarantee a bagpipe which is more than just a musical instrument, but also a work of art. Born in Scotland, made in the USA, McClellan Bagpipes.
We want to share a great opportunity with you to get your business name out to our listeners. We are looking for individual episode and yearly sponsors for the Washington Tattoo Podcast. So if you love music, history, and want to support military veterans, please take this step with us and consider being a sponsor. For For information on that, please email marketing@thewashingtontattoo.com.
So I said, calm the savage beast. I asked you to do a drum line for the first time. A little rivalry within the Army. We had the Pershing Zone and the Fife and Drum Corps. Most people think they're both there in DC. They're both on Fort Myer and they're together all the time. Well, they are in ceremonies, but not necessarily together because they're two separate organizations. One is the Old Guard and one is the Pershing Zone. So I said, hey, let's do a drum line and have a little battle in the backyard where you guys come together and drum together. And we had a lot of international senior sergeant majors there, our great warriors from all over the Army, because this is a celebration for the best warrior competition. And as soon as you all began, there wasn't a single peep in the backyard. And the neighbors on Fort Myer are all leaning out the windows listening. And it became the stalwart tradition of the Battle of the Drums. And you even brought in some international component of it a few years, right?
Yeah, it was crazy. It just perfectly lined up with His Majesty, the King's Guard, Norway's band being in DC, and it was just perfect timing.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it is something special for me. It's something I fell in love with and appreciated. I became very close with the members of the Fife and Drum and the Pershing Zone because you work in such close proximity. But never was I seized in amazement of the awe of the talent, the precision, the professionalism of our musicians in the Army and of our international brothers and sisters. It's just,
Thank you.
If you haven't been to a tattoo, it to me is a bucket list. You got to go. And I promise you, you'll find the next one so you can go see it and take a kid to see it as well. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a quick question, which I'm quite intrigued about. So the pinks and greens, which is the new general service or green service uniform, you had quite a bit of dealing with that. What were your thoughts on choosing that?
Yeah, that's a legacy. Well, a funny story was, and there's actually an interview, and I think it's somewhere on YouTube. When I first came in as the Sergeant of the Army, we had just went through several uniform changes throughout the last decade, right? And soldiers were very frustrated because, it's a change. You got to get a new uniform, the old one wear out. And I made a promise. I said, I'm not going to be the uniform guy. But did I eat those words? So let me tell you the beginnings of it. I'll try to be as brief as I can, but this is an important story. And here's the why. So not just but why did we do this? I was in New York City for a 9/11 ceremony. I was invited there to read the names of our soldiers that were lost in New York at 9/11. I was standing next to the chief of the fire police, the chief of police, and the chief of the fire department for New York City. I mean, these are big deals. This is the largest police force in America, and one of the largest. I think it is the largest fire company in America. And a natural-born American citizen walked up to me and said, "Hey, why do you have all those medals on your uniform?" Now, I'm wearing the dress blues at the time. And before I could even say anything, they said, "Oh, you must be the chief of police." I didn't even have the heart to say no. I said, "Yeah, that's right." And the chief of police looks at me like, "You're not the chief of police." But I quickly realized that our soldiers were not being recognized in a public light as soldiers. Now, you look over at a Marine, and that's undisputably a Marine. Why? Because they haven't changed their uniform since the dawn of modern age recognizes them. So fast forward to another story. I was in Chicago. I was going to meet one of our civilian agents, Secretary of the Army, for lunch downtown. I took my blue jacket off. Now I'm in my white shirt, black tie, with my blue pants and a gold stripe. I was downtown, busy Chicago, walking across the street. I waved to him like this, and all the traffic stopped around me. True story. Why? Because they thought I was a police officer. And I actually made a joke of it, and I was guiding traffic. And this is nothing on our great brothers in blue. All right, we need and I'm a big proponent of our police forces all across America, and we need to support them. But we were not indistinguishable. And most police forces and fire companies across America also use the blue uniform. Now, it is our original uniform, so we didn't want to get rid of it, but we needed a level of etiquette, I guess, that was consistent with a business suit. And we tried to simplify the dress uniforms in the Army by taking our highest, which is the dress blue, and basically dual purposing it. But we weren't being recognized. And why? Even though that was the original uniform of our Army, is because we wore it in in places where most people didn't see, in balls and things that most civilians never witnessed. So we weren't being recognized for the great work we were doing in the public light on a regular basis. So we went back to the time in modern history where this nation came together collectively to fight and bring down a tyrant. So many people went to war and wore that period uniform that till this day, there are pictures of those fine soldiers who served the greatest generation on mantles and on walls of this iconic uniform. So we said, let's give it a try. And the rest is history. But hopefully our soldiers love it. I know the American people love and appreciate it. But I can tell you this, everywhere I walked wearing that uniform, people said, you look like a soldier. And that's what we were trying to achieve. Sorry for the long story.
I love it.
No, that's fine. I'm just wondering how long that process took, because I know, for example, when the Royal Marines, the drummers, they changed their gloves from white cotton gloves to white cotton gloves with pimples in. That took so long to get through our dress committee. You wouldn't believe. So how long did this sort of process take?
Yeah, quite a long time. You know, the American Army, the chief and myself have a lot of authority to do those things, but final approval's got to come through the secretary. And then ultimately, you know, we need the head nod from Congress because they're the appropriators. They're the ones who have to sign off on it. And again, there was a lot of frustration in Capitol Hill because of us, not just us, but the services making these uniform changes, because it comes at a cost. It does. So it took quite a time, about 18 months from start to finish, just to get the approval. And then, you know, it takes another 5 or 6 years to outfit the entire Army, National Guard Reserve with this uniform, largely because the lack of textile industry in America, it's gone. You know, the ability to mass produce textiles went overseas many years ago. And there's only a very limited number of that in the US. And believe it or not, part of the program to build this uniform was actually kickstarting the ability for us to make the appropriate shirts and tweeds and those things again, produce them in the United States. And we're happy to say that that is all produced here in the US.
Wow, that's amazing.
The ability to do that has been rejuvenated by changing the uniform as well. So there's a lot of second and third order benefits, but if we have time, I'll tell you the Paul Harvey of the first time we wore that uniform and why, if we want to go into that.
Oh, absolutely. We got to hear this.
All right. So there's a little, so at the time we built this uniform, we were being very secretive for many reasons. We didn't want to build up a constituency of haters, you know, before we got this thing out on the street. So there was kind of like a little secret team working on this uniform, and nobody knew about it. We were making sure it wasn't getting out in the public because we didn't want it to get killed before it began. And I had a prototype made. And so they came in, they made me a prototype, and it sat in my quarters for some time, deciding, all right, how are we going to release this? How do we get the opinion of the American people, which is more important than that of the soldiers, all right, because we're America's Army. And it was the night before the Army-Navy football game. And I called the chief on the phone, this General Milley, and I said, Chief, what? I think I'm going to wear that uniform tomorrow. He said, whoa. Now, there is provision in Army regulation that allows us to fund prototype uniforms, right? So it wasn't against, and the Chief Staff of the Army can give me that authority. So it was not out of regulation to prototype uniform or wear it in public. He said, okay, but SMA, if this goes south, this is you, not me. So I wear this uniform and I walk out, and I figure this is the best time. It's the most watched football game other than the Super Bowl on national television. And I'm going to get the opinion of the American people as soon as I walk out there on the 50-yard line, right? It's going to happen. And I'm either going to be fired or have this uniform approved. And I was willing to go there. I was already high 3, I think. So, there was no risk monetarily for this. So. And I walk out on the field. It's snowing up in Philadelphia. And at that time, General Mattis was a SecDef and our chairman was a Marine. So they were coming from the Navy side, along with the Marine Corps leadership and the Navy leadership. And it was me, General Milley, and Secretary Esper walking out from the Army side. And I automatically could feel the heat from the fire of the eyes that were coming from the chairman and the SecDef staring at me as they were walking. And there 100% of their attention was focused on what I was wearing. And I thought, I'm going to get fired. I think I'm going to get fired today. General Mattis looks at me and goes, what is that? I said, that's my new uniform, sir. What do you think? And then I got this, and then the Marine Corps leadership looked at me and they said, like that. I knew that meant we were going to have a conversation later, right? Because I didn't seek permission to do this at all. I kind of just did it. And I figured, it's better. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so here's what happened, though. It was unbelievable. Everywhere I went in that stadium, everybody told me, if this is the last thing you do as a sergeant major in the Army, do this. You look like a soldier. Even NCOs and officers come up and said, man, I don't want to buy a new uniform, but gosh darn, that thing looks good, right? And for weeks and weeks and weeks after that football game, I got letters from all across the country, from people not in the military, that said, please bring this back to our soldiers. From grandmothers and grandfathers and granddaughters and grandsons and the mothers and fathers of the people who fought in World War II, or their grandfather fought in World War II, or their father fought in World War II, or their mother. It was just amazing how many letters. And I used to bring them to, the update every morning and say, I got another letter. And it was clear then at that point, because the picture that went viral on the internet of me standing out there, I got no hate mail on it. And then when we did the survey, I think we had an 86% approval, which is the highest approval rate for any Army uniform in the past. So we went with it, but it was a do or die situation for me. I was feeling the warmth just coming from the eyes of the Secretary of Defense. But from there, it was a long road of going up to Capitol Hill and convincing our elected leaders who are rightfully doing their job that this was the right thing to do. And then, going around the Army and showing it to soldiers. And that was not a hard sell, believe it or not. People were very frustrated because they couldn't get it in time,
Yeah. I remember seeing that as soon as that rolled out, you could just see everybody go, oh man. It was twofold. One was, got to buy another uniform. And then the second was, I want to retire in that. Like, I want my picture to be on that because it's so classic. I mean, it's just a classic uniform. And like you said, we were either confused with police officers or bus drivers. And it was one of those things where you're going.
And no hate on them. They're great Americans. Yeah. They're both great Americans. But we need to put our soldiers back into a distinguishable uniform. And you can go back in history. There was a very good reason why they left that uniform. Actually, it was because 8 million people come back from the war, and everybody got out because you can't keep a standing army that large, and they were wearing the uniform in the street. And a lot of homeless people, unfortunately, were wearing the uniform because it was readily available, because so many were mass produced, and it fell out of favor. And the enlisted version, because what we have today is actually the officer version. The enlisted version was OD green on OD green. And because there was no contrast in the uniform like the officers, the enlisted soldiers didn't like it. They loved the officer version, but at that time, they were not ready to allow the enlisted soldiers to wear that version. Today, we distinguish the officers enlisted through insignia and rank, and now we get the contrast of what we call the pinks and greens. And no, they're not pink. They were called that because a manufacturer that made them during World War II, when you laundered them, they would have a pink hue to them. So that's why the soldiers during World War II called them pinks and greens. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I never knew any of that. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So to fast forward to your current role right now with the Association of the United States Army, and you're the VP of NCO and soldier programs. What does that job entail, and what are some of the duties that you're doing today in that role?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think it's important that we educate our soldiers about their professional association. I got to start with the fact that the Army started AUSA after World War II. It was actually started by the Army and remained in the Army for the first few years of its formation. The first president of AUSA was the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army. And then later it left the Army to perform its mission. To better perform its mission for the Army, to free its hands up of some of the rules and regulations. And what is our mission? Our job is to educate, inform, and connect America's people with the America's soldiers, right? And we do it in many ways. We educate, inform, connect. We're the authors of Army Magazine. We do lobby on behalf of the Army. I know that sounds like a bad term, lobbyists. We're not the kind that take money from people to get bills passed. But what we are the Army's voice on Capitol Hill, and we can do things legally that the Army can't do and help them represent them. In NCO and soldier programs, I tell my team, small but mighty and motivated, that there is no left and right limit except legal and moral boundaries, right, and regulatory, to supporting our soldiers. We do everything from supporting the Sergeant Major of the Army on a regular basis, helping him get his message out through communications like my podcast series, Soldier Today. We have a twice weekly publication that's digital. It goes out to soldiers, which is also called Soldier Today, all free. We participate in things like Army Magazine, AUSA Extra News, but we also support, the big part of what I do on a regular basis, support the 121 chapters we have all throughout the United States and abroad. We have 7 regions, including 2 overseas locations. And we help our soldiers locally down to the installation level, or even the armories and the reserve barracks out there. So there's an AUSA chapter out there doing something literally every day for somebody, working with the community to find creative ways to help the chain of command carry out their missions and inform, connect, and educate the community about the benefits of having our great soldiers in their community and how they can assist and help. So no left and right limit. And we find creative things to do. This is the best job in the world. I went from the best job in the world to the next best job in the world, because I get to come to work every day and I get to do a lot of the things I used to do as a leader and support our soldiers. And I got incredible leadership from our president, General Robert Brown, to our board that frees me up to be able to get creative things going to support our soldiers. One of the big projects I'm working on for the Army now is called the Soldier for Life Network. AUSA has written a proposal to the Army, it's not approved yet, to create, design, and operate a Soldier for Life network. What would that be? It'd be like AKO on the outside, but open to every soldier who's ever served, and allow us to educate, inform, and connect our veterans, about 8 million of them out there, 1 million of them being retirees, to stay connected with the Army and build a community of support around the mission, right, of informing America about our Army, and have white pages so you can look up your battle buddies and stay connected with them, but mostly an information portal so you can get your information from the chief, the SMA, retirement services, MyPay, all those things. So something we're working on now, still to be continued. All right. Yeah. There's a lot of legal things that have to be done for us to do that and properly represent the Army, but we're working hard on that and trying to get a Soldier for Life network to bring a stronger meaning to Soldier for Life.
Wow, that's incredible. And I mean, is that something, I mean, COVID kind of hit all of us. And what I did really appreciate was the annual meeting last year was in person. And it kind of felt like it was one of those first forward-leaning organizations for AUSA to be that front line. Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do it live. We're going to make sure people are safe. We're going to make sure people have their credentials when they come in so that everyone's there feels a level of safety. How did COVID kind of maybe pivot some of the items that you were working on, and then also keep the things you were working on moving forward?
Just like the rest of the world, COVID had a pretty profound effect on our operations. But the team here, which normally comes to work every day in a building in Arlington, Virginia, to do all the great things like, working on the next annual meeting and the other 4 or 5 meetings we do throughout the country in support of the Army every year. And we had to pack up and go home. And then, we were Googling things like, so what is this Zoom thing? We're going to probably need something like that. Or, we all quickly curbed our ignorance for virtual communications. And the amazing staff here, I would say, didn't lose a step. Now, things were different. I couldn't go out to all the installations like I normally do to support our chapters and do the great things locally. And there was this immediate loss of this connection between us and the most important thing that we do, take care of our soldiers here at AUSA. So we reached out to our chapters, and all because the great creativity of one of our chapter presidents said, hey, I have a few soldiers quarantined. Would you mind, SMA, just getting on Zoom? And I'm like, what the heck is Zoom? And pumping them up. They came back from deployment. They're sitting in this building. They're quarantined for 14 days. You remember in the very beginning of this, it was terrible. I said, sure, So, I download this program, I figure out how to get on there. And of course, all the soldiers are already experts. They'd only had to be out a month before they mastered it. And, and it was amazing. And I was really supposed to be on there an hour, and like 3 hours later, I'm still, answering questions and doing one-on-ones with these soldiers. And so I told my team, let's send this out. Let's offer leader development at every level, whether it's one soldier or a mass. And throughout COVID, we did about 100, 150 of them. And it was everything from one soldier. And we did one in Hawaii with 6,000 soldiers on simultaneously, from guard units to recruiters. And we do everything from professional leader development classes and courses I would, do to help fill virtual drill time for our National Guard and Reserve soldiers, because it was important to get them the drill, even though they couldn't come in. To just doing, talking to soldiers about, it's tough to be cooped up in the barracks during COVID, or young squad leaders about how do I maintain control and communication with my soldiers during this type of environment. So I think that's a leader's responsibility, no matter what your role in, regardless of situation. There's going to be bad times. Great leaders thrive through, creativity and ingenuity, and find a creative way around the problem. There's always going to be a problem in life. And if you sit back and absorb it, you're going to miss an opportunity. And that's the second thing I have to say is there is opportunity in every situation. Just because you're limited doesn't mean there's opportunity out there. And I think that, again, great leaders will capitalize on it. All right. It's your responsibility to find that opportunity at times, but I think that our team did a great job. But we're ready to get back to in-person. As you said, we had our great annual meeting and put all the provisions in place to maintain the health and safety, requiring everybody to have vaccines, which was a very laborious task to register everybody and have all their vaccines in there. And we're moving forward in the future. And unfortunately, we had to cancel our next show because there were some issues with mandating vaccines in the state that we were going to do that, which implies associated risks. But we're gearing up for LAMPAC here in the spring, and we're getting ready to do an in-person show down there for our great team down there in Hawaii.
That's incredible. And I would imagine, all of that being said, this Soldier for Life network probably gave you a lot of experience through COVID on how to do more of these things virtual and these new kind of technological offerings. I'm sure COVID in a weird way helped.
Yeah. And, the realization came to me because I also serve as the co-chair of the Chief of Staff of the Army's Retiree Council. I volunteer my time to the chief, and I go around and talk to retirees and gather the reports from our local councils to do a formal report each year that's due to the chief about the state of our retirees. And the number one issue for the last 5 years in this report has been a lack of communication between the Army and the retirees. And there's actually a Title X responsibility the Army has to maintain contact with its retirees. That's why they have a council. That's why I exist for the chief. And so I went in there to brief the chief along with General Halverson, the other co-chair, and said, Chief, I'm tired of putting this on the report. We need to do something about this, but I know I can't give you a bill because there's a lot of resource requirements that you're trying to get after to modernize the force, right? I said, why don't you just give us the ability, not the permission, we're not asking for permission yet, but the ability to at least explore the opportunity to do a public-private partnership with the Army. And let's see if we can get the resources together to do this outside the Army on behalf of the Army. And in many cases, it has to be done that way because we didn't want to just do retirees. We want to invite any soldier who's ever served to the Soldier for Life network. If you served one day, as long as it was honorable, or you served 40 years, the intent is you'll be an invited member of the Soldier for Life network. Unfortunately, if you haven't, you won't be able to get in there because we're actually going to have a verification service because we felt it. We don't want to be exclusive, but we felt that it was important for the safety and security of the individuals that are inside this thing to be able to have open conversations and to share and collaborate information between each other, that we needed to, kind of secure it to make sure that, there's no bad doers trying to get in there and cause harm to our great veterans. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we usually end our last segment here, SMA, with a final four. So I think Stu's got the first one for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you're a very busy person with all the organizations you're involved with. So I'm just wondering what you do in your downtime. do you have any hobbies or anything like that?
Too many, but too many. So, I picked up an interesting hobby when I was serving in the Army because I had very limited time, and unfortunately I'd lost my life companion, not my wife. She is my life companion, but my dog that I loved so much when I was the SMA, and I felt bad towards the end because I was always working. So I needed to find something, and I became a beekeeper. And I think I'm the first beekeeper to ever keep bees on Fort Myer. It was quite the journey to get the approval to do that. But I do that. I do beekeeping. I'm also an avid woodworker. I do a lot of woodworking. This is something I picked up as a young soldier back when we used to have craft shops on our installations. And not knocking my buddies, but when they're out partying, I was using these available things and resources. And I met this gentleman, this master cabinet maker, when I was at Fort Riley, Kansas, that really got me into it and taught me a whole bunch about woodworking. And I screwed up millions of projects before I got anywhere decent, but I'm a cabinet maker. I make furniture. Almost all the furniture in my home in Pennsylvania I've handmade. And I enjoy it. That was my outlet, and it was something I could turn off the machine, go be the SMA, and that actually made my projects probably a little bit better because it made patience and created patience for those things. And I like all the outdoorsy stuff. I have a small piece of land up on, and that I intend to grow crops on, not at large scale, very small scale. And I love working outside. Actually, my wife got me a retirement gift. It wasn't a Corvette. It wasn't a Jaguar. I got a new tractor, right? And I was all excited because I finally got a new tractor. And I use that thing, and I love it. And I wax it like it is a Corvette, my tractor, and I think it's sexy. So yeah, and I still work out a lot. I try to work out every day or every other day. I got to do a lot of different things, because I ran my legs to exhaustion and my knees to disrepair. But I still enjoy that very much. I think I'm not done serving. So really my biggest hobby is figuring out creative ways to take care of our soldiers and Army. And it sounds kind of corny, but it's true. I think I am completely institutionalized. And what does that mean? The easiest way to describe it, and people may have heard that, unfortunately, people that are in prison so long, they don't want to leave. It's called, and the term is called, being institutionalized. I'm institutionalized in the Army. I mean, I left because I ran out of jobs, not because I was done being a soldier. I mean, I jobbed myself out of the Army, and so this gives me the ability to do that. My wife works here at AUSA. She is fittingly the family support network leader here at AUSA too, and her passion. I married the right woman for many reasons, and one of those is that her love for the Army, equal to or even greater than mine. She had greater anxiety of separation from the Army than I did, and was not done trying to give back to our great families either. So we find passion every day, and doing those things, but we have the outlets. And I tell you, everybody needs an outlet. And if you don't have one, find one. And if you're not good at it, that's the good thing. You'll get good at it over time. Screwing up the beehives, I've done it. Messing up junky furniture, I've done it. Find something, find a skill. My next life skill is I had a banjo for 20 years that I kick myself every day for not playing. And I'm going to learn how to play that banjo before I die. I'm going to do it. I know you guys are both musicians. It's harder to learn later in life. I'm going to figure it out. And maybe if it's just the dueling banjo on the front porch, maybe if it's just one song, I'm going to do it. But I encourage everybody to find an outlet. And can I just tell one thing to the audience too, is these two great individuals here are great lifelong musicians, and I've had the honor and privilege of listening to them, and they put together a foundation to carry on the legacy and history of the music of our militaries and bring that to an audience greater than they could have when they were serving in uniform. And they created this foundation. I tell you, is find them, seek them out, and you will not be discouraged or disappointed. I promise you. They are incredibly talented young men, and they work with an incredibly talented group of individuals who have passion for what they do. But thanks for having me on the show today, guys.
No, thank you guys. And honestly, we just have to say a quick shout out to Mrs. Dailey and all of her incredible work as well. We really thank her. And Mrs. Dailey, thank you for being so hospitable and taking care of all of us all the time.
Well, that's excellent. I'll tell you what, and in 2022 in October, you're going to see the Washington Tattoo at the annual meeting this year. I probably shouldn't have let that out. It was supposed to be a little surprise, but I can't wait. I can't wait for it. As a matter of fact, and you have an upcoming show here soon that I'm going to attend as well. Where's that at?
It is. It's at the winery at Bull Run on April 4th. So we're super excited. Pipes and drums. We have the Oscott Highland dancers coming in from Australia. It's going to be incredible.
So I'm going to put a plug out for you too. Is hey, they got a website. Go check it out. The Washington Tattoo. They would want and appreciate any sponsorship you could give. They're just getting started. They need your help. If you can help, if you can come. If you can't, that's fine. But if you can help these guys out, give them a chance, help them out a little bit, and let's get this tattoo rolling because they got big plans for this, for what they want to do here in the DC area as well as across the country. So thanks for what you guys are continuing to do.
SMA, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, and best to you, mate, across the pond, and all the best to you over there. And hopefully the rain will stop soon. I don't think that's ever going to happen in England, but we wish sunny days for you.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, Dan.
Take care.
Hey everyone, this is Mark Riley again from the Washington Tattoo. We have some exciting events planned for 2022, and we can't wait to share them with you. The first of which is our first annual gala on April 4th. This event will feature fine wine, world-class music, guest speakers, and an amazing venue, the winery at Bull Run. We will also have special events, silent auction items, raffle items, and a VIP experience that will blow you away. If you're interested in being part of a sponsorship program or would like to donate items for our silent auction, please reach out to Edward Krizik at the Washington Tattoo. That's Edward_Krizik at the Washington Tattoo. EDWARD_KRZYSIK at the WashingtonTattoo.com. Well, Stu, I mean, what did you think of that episode?
Oh, man, that was amazing. You know, everything from his, over the years, his leadership, which I found really interesting. You know, it's experiences you can draw on yourself from, our own careers. You always remember the good leaders and you always remember the bad leaders, and you adopt your own leadership style. And it's, he was no different from anybody else. But what he's done over the years and how his men look up to him and how he approaches that is, it's very commendable. And I think it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I just really was taken back by his communication style. It's this humble confidence where he completely says he doesn't know everything, but what he knows, he's a consummate student. And I mean, to come out with the pinks and greens on the world stage like that, I think that was incredible. I love that story. But he also had some unique hobbies, actually.
Yeah, I know. He must. So beekeeping, obviously, is what came out, and the fact that he's the army, sergeant major of the army, can do whatever he wants. So if he wants to put a beehive on the barracks, then that's what he's going to do. But it's great. Something else, something different, another string to his bow, and he's obviously a busy man. So having something else to just relax with while he's not, working with the veterans and everything else is all good.
Yeah, and I think that idea of having something completely different to kind of escape to, I think is a really powerful thing. And of course, that's where we bring in the side of music. And, when you can do anything when you're the SMA in your backyard, except for, if you really need to get the chief to sign off on something, I guess you have to question that. But the amount of drumline battles that have taken place behind the Sergeant Major of the Army's quarters on Fort Myer is a lot of fun. There's celebrating best warriors throughout the Army with that competition, which always was the kind of kickoff to the Army 10 Miler weekend, and then again to the AUSA annual conference, which is incredible that we get the opportunity at the Washington Tattoo to partner with the Association of the United States Army. So General Brown, General Haley, SMA Dailey, just thank you so much for all the opportunity that you've provided us with this partnership. And we look forward to really working with them in the future. And so really, I guess October is their big convention in DC, and mask mandates are starting to loosen up. COVID is kind of allowing people to live their normal lives again. So that convention, I think, is a really big landmark for them and also for us.
Yeah, I think it's a good chance to show some of our musical support that we can push out. But going back to the drum lines, that's vital for the drum lines. That's always good to get them together and mixing people up, but also the people watching it. Both of us have been involved in drum lines and judging them as well, and it's all about getting people together, connecting and networking, and just bringing people closer together, which is what he's all about. From whether it's veterans or whether it's servicemen. He even mentioned trying to get stuff out of people. He doesn't ask questions. You'll just go and sit down, have a coffee with them, and people will open up. And that's not just necessarily the military side of it; it's the music side of it, and the veteran side of it. I think it's just a very approachable person, and he can probably get the best out of people, and I think people want to give more to him as well. So now we're sort of leaving and working in various sectors. I think it's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to stop anytime soon. I can see him being a powerhouse going all the way till his last breath. And Sergeant Major in the Army, Dailey, we salute you and thank you for all of the things that you're doing for us and for veterans out there. And from here, from Stu and I, we hope you all have a great day.
Take care.